Hey, Aleeyah, welcome to the first episode. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Aunt, thanks for having me.
All right, so tell the audience a little bit about yourself and we'll get
Um,
started.
I'm 21. Um, I'm currently working full time during these crazy coronavirus times, which I am thankful for, and which my occupation is currently babysitting, nannying, and yeah, I think also I love art and I'm an artist. I love to draw and create and create worlds and write. And even I could see myself doing film eventually in life. I just think that all of these things go hand in hand and I just love them all. And I can't see my life without them. And yeah, as you'll find out later in this podcast, that's a big part of our family, I think.
Yeah, I think creativity, when it comes to creativity with our family, um, between me, you, Ashley, my dad, or our dad, right?
Yeah.
We got the same dad. Drawing, writing, a lot of creative thoughts, right? When we put our heads together, we have thoughts, some pretty cool ideas that I think maybe now starting to come to fruition. Like individually, we are working on them, and I hope that maybe like this podcast can actually start bringing that stuff together. Um, so, like I said in the intro, we're 8 years apart, and you and I have two totally different point of views as far as our childhood. Talk a little bit about like your point of view, and then I'll chime in with my point of view, certain points of the years that you bring up.
Yeah. Well, basically Anthony and I's childhood was very similar um, until the point of our parents getting divorced. Um, I was like 12 when they separated, 11, 12. And then Anthony he was like 18, 19 years old, so he was kind of on his way out. But our lives kind of like were very different after that. And my mom uh, remarried, and my dad did. But I lived with my mom, and then we moved to Florida, and times were tough there. Even times before we moved, it was just very hard and weird to see my family basically split up. So, and also the financial strain that put on my mom and both of my parents, and just being also old enough and cognizant, basically, of the struggle that the financial strain that happened on the family after that. And kind of, so then like fast forwarding to us moving to Florida with my new stepdad and my mom, things were also hard there, where went to a new school. I think I'd been to Florida one time, and then I lived with my uncle for a couple of months while my mom and stepdad went to look for jobs. And yeah, it was, in a way, it was kind of lonely. Um, I found, which is interesting enough, I found more comfort in the creative world. So drawing, I started to read more because I just had more time on my hands if I wasn't doing homework. And yeah, I think through all the struggles, I think I ultimately used creativity and shows that I love to watch that gave me ideas as like escapism during the tough times, because it also, my mom also went through hard times with her husband at the time, and it kind of trickled down into the rest of the family, which was me. So experiencing that was really hard, and I think I just wanted to block things out, and I didn't really have community. So that's like just one huge snippet of the after effects of my parents getting divorced. Anthony,
So
I
that's
think, yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, just to give the audience a timeline, that was pretty much between 2009 and say 2013, 14,
Yeah, 2009 and 2012.
2012. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so like, I would go on deployment or would get underway, and especially when y'all was in Florida, a lot of these stories I would only hear after the fact or from third party, and I am I did get I guess I did get the better end of the stick by experiencing my whole childhood and teenage time, both parents in the same household, where you and Ashley kind of got a little bit split up. Ashley got up until about like 16,
Yeah.
15, 16.
She, a little rascal.
But you said 11 years old. And
Hmm.
so I always thought like, for the things that I was aware that you was going through, I always thought you were the sweetest out of all of us. So you should be, if not benefiting the most. Not that me and Ashley were hellraisers, but I think that if anybody, Aaliyah, the baby sis, should probably have like the best send off, right? Um, and so that's 2009. So a little bit of a backstory from, we'll say, 1990, which was the year I was born, to up to 2009. Um, Growing up with three kids in the house, three other or two other siblings. It's not bad. Got two sis. It's not like we were having hand me downs and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
definitely some challenging experiences that would shape the man I am today, and I guess would shape the bigger brother that I ended up being to you and Ashley. So,
Yeah.
if we use Burgess Street or Massachusetts Street or even Tonto, right? Those homes. I mean, I wish I could turn those homes into museums. Um, just to give a reminder um, of those were turning points for me that you
Oh my
know
goodness. Sorry. Massachusetts Street. I just remembered that. That was another
yeah.
saga of life.
Saga. Yeah, it was right. And your parents at the end of the day, after it's all said and done, it's always a sore topic, right? Because they'll say, we did the best we could. Maybe we didn't know any better. Or some people, right? Kids having kids.
Yeah.
But always the topic of discussion is, or at least when you get older, but it's like, but I see these other families like they're well off, and as a kid, you don't know what they're going through to be well off. You just know they're going to
Yeah.
three, yeah, they're going to Three Amigos after a baseball game, and you're not, because you know, or they ask you to spend the night over their house, and then you see the stuff they got, and like, dang, like I ain't got no door, I ain't got no heat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh, and so that burns a fire in you that so it's a flip of a coin type of thing. Burns a fire in you to where when you become older and you are in control of your life, like I felt like the first time I was in control, I think when I was like 13 years old, I was able to start cutting grass around the neighborhood. So like $10 for
Yeah.
the front yard, $10 for the back. So usually, of course, if you got a front back, you're not gonna tell me just cut the front and leave the back alone. So I make about $20 per yard, and that was like the first time I felt in control. I got the lawnmower from some homeless person for like I think for like $20. It
Oh
was
wow.
yeah, the blades were dull, but it cut the grass well enough. And from then on, I think that's when I started paying for my haircuts with my lawnmower money. And then
Mm.
after that, obviously wait till 16, started getting my first job, and then you kind of end up being addicted to it, like more hours working, get more money in your pocket because you're so used to being told no to
Yeah.
things that you think as a kid, like these are the things, like why can't I get these particular things? And we didn't ask for much. Like I don't remember us being kids that was like, yo, I want a pony. I want those $300 like Escalade, the ones you could drive in, little toy ones.
Seriously. Well,
Um,
I wanted that.
did you get it?
No, like no, I didn't.
Like, um, I just felt like we didn't have some, and it's not that we were definitely not spoiled or unappreciative kids.
Yeah. Which mom would argue that I was more spoiled than the rest of you guys
I
because,
think,
well, what were you
well,
gonna
because
say?
you said, I think because you said like you didn't do chores.
Yeah, like chores. But then she would also say like, I guess when things started looking up for us, you know, I think there was a little small factor of guilt in some ways, from mom always saying no. And so maybe even if she didn't have the means, I feel like she would do it. And now that I understand that, I think if I like fully understood that, and then I wouldn't have asked for those things. But um, now that I do, I'm like, oh man,
Yeah, because you get a little bit of perspective when you become an adult. You realize how expensive things cost. But
yeah,
it still doesn't take away from the fact like as a kid, I should have heat. As a kid, I shouldn't be going to bed with 4 or 5 layers of clothing. You know, what family
yeah.
wants to live in a in a shelter? Um,
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that too. What
yeah,
the?
no, I see. So
I'm
you
literally blocking
because
things out.
yeah, but and for me, I guess I was old enough to that stuff. It'll never really escape my mind because
Yeah.
and just recently I addressed. I'm no longer resentful for my upbringing, but I
Hmm.
did just recently address the fact that the reason why my drive is as like go as it is to do things is I, I'm a motivated person individually, but a lot of it is feeling like I'm making up for lost time, not only for myself but for like the family, right? Because it's almost like I'm chasing a ghost because
Yeah.
of what dad and mom maybe not didn't do, or what grandpa didn't do, what great grandpa did. You know, him being a Rolling Stone, all his family's all over the place, right? Um, and I don't know why I take that on my shoulder, like, all right, well, this I'm gonna break the generational curse across the board. Everything's gonna be fixed in 5 years, and unless I was just to be like by myself and single and solely focus on that every day, neglect Anthony Jr. and any relationship that I'm in, then I wouldn't be able to accomplish that because I have to take other people into consideration,
Yeah.
And I pass that if I pass, you know, my properties and the money and inheritances that I have intended for Junior, he may not be like, yo, dad, I don't really care about that stuff because you took care of me, so I just want to do X, Y, and Z and call it a day. And I'm like, you don't understand, like your heritage, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know how much I had to fight for this?
Yeah.
Uh, to like to kind of think about like the transition between maybe your traumas that you went through as a kid, and for you not to transition that into your kids and even enable them, because like what's the one thing a lot of parents do say, well, I didn't have this as a kid, so I want to make sure I give my kids everything, right? But
Yeah.
you didn't make them work for it. So like I make jokes about like simulating stressful environments for Junior so that he feels like so he feels like he had to earn whatever he had to earn.
Oh, that's a good
uh
idea. That's funny.
yeah, like because he won't really, unless I implement it, he's not gonna really come across any adversity that is survival. Like that's what
Well,
it was,
not
it was
yet.
survival mode. Well, I mean, unless when he gets on his own and he has to make his own mistakes, but he's not survival mode like at 16, how am I gonna pay the light bill for my dad's mortgage? Like,
Yeah.
he's not thinking like that. He's worried about his school. He's worried about things that a kid should be worried about. He's not really worried
Yeah.
about having to pay for his own school clothes, or wear the same he wore in 10th grade when he goes to 11th grade.
Yeah. I think about the burdens. I guess you can call them burdens as kids, that in ways that had we like were noticeable of and we recognized. I remember getting birthday money for dad from my dad, from our dad. And this is when they were separated, and I guess mom was like dating Theo or maybe married at the time. And
Tio.
yeah, Theo. And I remember my mom like asking if she could use that money to like pay the electric bill, and she like told me that I could say no, like it's fine. But of course I was like 12 or 11, 12, I'm 12. I understand that my lights will be out, like, or mom is going to make irresponsible decisions if I don't do this. Like, I feel like I need to. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and also and I think that's where, I distinctly remember that as a moment where I thought, money isn't everything. And that was a clear thought in my mind because, um, I think I was like, well, I was fine without the $120 or however much dad gave me for Christmas. And I'll be fine without it now if I give it to mom and even if I never get it back. And I think that's where, like years after that, I cared about it, but I think I also wanted to make sure I didn't hold it too high because I knew that mom didn't have a lot of it, dad didn't have a lot of it. We just didn't have like a lot of money for me to be like, I want this and that. And I can tell mom my wants and desires, but also like, you know, don't don't put so much hope in that. So I think from that moment, I remember very clearly like being cognizant that money isn't everything.
And
And I
so do
think
you
that
think,
impacted my decisions later in high school and stuff like that.
okay, and that's what I was kind of going to expand on. So like with under, going through those experiences kind of at a young age and having those burdens, right? Do you think that those, you know, adult situations kind of impacted you feeling like in life when you become an adult, you be able to accomplish your dreams and your goals?
I think that's where it's interesting for me. I think now that I look back on it, around like 14, 15, 14 and up, I've had like this obsession with figuring out, which I think a lot of kids do, but also I think it was like an anxiety for me, like figuring out what and like having this exact plan of what I'm going to do. But also, me, like being a free spirit, I didn't feel the need to take traditional paths. So um, basically, my goal was be a freelance artist. And that means you have to work at it hard now because, you know, when I graduate, it's not just going to land in my lap. And I think that like was a big this whole thing of me having a plan, researching everything, like looking into everything about how I can become a better artist. But I think it squelched my artistry a whole lot because I think I had anxiety about the pressures of the future because I feared so much not having a plan, not having like money to provide for myself, and still being at mom's house at 20, 21, 22, like still saying, oh, like I'm just trying to get my feet off the ground in a way. Like I think I had feared that. And yeah, I think that created a lot of anxiety for me that I hadn't realized.
And I think throughout our adulthood, as far as for me and you, um, I think a mixture of fear, resentment, maybe a little bit of anxiety, right? Because
Mm,
you kind of feel like you only got one shot. You think about,
yeah,
um,
definitely.
I don't want to go through such and such again,
Yeah.
and cool advantage for you, you don't have mouth to feed, but your own. So I say this is the opportunity where you can make all the mistakes you possibly can, so that when you have your own children, um, you don't, you're not like, hey, buttered rolls tonight
Yeah,
with sparkling water.
yeah. Ice soup.
Yeah, yeah, like you're not trying to sell it.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about in the midst of challenging times for me and you, growing up, there were some great highlights in our life, coming out that did inspire us a bit, especially with creativity.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
talk about a little bit
definitely.
about that, like movies. We're all movie heads, kung fu heads.
Yeah.
Anime. Go Trunks, stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I think that's what made our house so fun. Like, even though we didn't have like AC or like heat or doors or, or a finished bathroom, like, or we were going from one house to another, or we were at that hospitality place for what was that, for like a year? How long were we there?
Uh,
Like 6, 7 months?
it was the middle of the winter we left, and when Tonto got finished built in May, so I think about 5 months.
Yeah, that was weird living there.
Yeah, different.
But yeah, that was really different. um, but I think, yeah, the fun things were, I remember really young in Burgess Street, some of my earliest memories watching you play video games, like Kingdom Hearts. I think that moment, and then us all watching Toonami on Friday nights or Saturday nights um, together imprinted in my brain that I wanted to create things. And I just remember vividly like our family moments of doing that. And, mom being off to the side, Buki being whatever. I don't know what she was doing. But I just remember like us being around in like the Toonami voice. And I remember dad playing Gladiator nonstop, Braveheart, just playing like, I mean, all these movies. We
Great
had a lot
movies.
of movies. Great movies, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
he didn't watch some garbage movies at all. And
it
he
doesn't
would
get
talk
you
about
suffering.
them. Yeah, I just remember him going on dialogues about them. And then, oh man, if we go to New York and auntie and grandma and dad are together, that's, you're just listening to a bunch of people critique movies and throw out all these names of actors and actresses and producers and directors, and you're just
Yeah, the
like
critics.
enthralled. You want to listen. And I
Yeah,
think, yeah, I think that's just one of the many, I think, fun moments of like our childhood.
yeah, definitely grandma and grandpa, or really dad talking about Star Trek.
Yeah.
Referencing William Shatner or
Oh
Leonard
yeah.
Nimoy. You
Go,
know,
yeah. They're using their lines,
yeah,
reenacting them.
yeah. So with such enthusiasm,
Yeah, it's like,
uh,
wow.
and the funny thing is too. So naturally, Dad would watch Star Trek. He's a comic book guy,
Yeah,
drawer,
talk
and
about comics.
that stuff kind of like we just fell in love with it too. And I try to like implement that with Junior a bit. And like right now, I can't tell if he likes it. I think that I like it, but I can't tell if he will carry it on in the future.
Yeah.
But I think with there being so much creative minds in our family, it did inspire us to kind of think a little bit beyond that, to the point
Hmm.
where kind of like, I want to write a screenplay one day,
Yeah.
You took the drawing that I kind of did as a hobby, Dad kind of did as a hobby, and you kind of took it to the next
And
level.
Buki, which is my sister, Ashley.
Yeah,
I just have always called her Buki.
yeah, forever. We've
Yeah.
always called her. And so,
And her as well. I think I just witnessed everyone doing it, and I was like,
yeah,
what the? I want to
yeah.
do this.
And so I've yet to admit that you're better than me. But you are pretty good. I remember you staying up late actually. When I lived in Holly Point, I think you stayed until like 2, 3 in the morning. You were on that self portrait of yourself on
Oh,
the
yeah.
wall, and I think that's when I knew you was. That's when I knew you was really taking it seriously. Aside from like the grant that you got to go to school and everything like that,
Yeah.
actually your
Aside
craft,
from, making it into college.
yeah, college, but I think so. Everybody goes to college, right? But what you do during while you're in there, and what the product that you turn in, I think, is what would matter to me as a professor on how
Yeah.
serious you're taking. Because some people go to college like, yo, get my parents out of my face, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, People that care, they turn in a good product, and that was I remember that. I think I was up late playing 2K, and
Yeah,
or
I
maybe
think
I'm,
so. Or Grand Theft Auto or something.
yeah, something like that. And I saw you still up doing that. Um, and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
wow, my sister's doing it. Um, I remember because you graduated in 2016, and I was really looking forward to that year for you because I felt that was the year when you'd be able to really take life into your own hands. And that's why a few years before that, I had started that savings account for you, so that
Yeah,
you
that
could go
was an
ahead and
amazing graduation gift.
well, oh yeah, well, Tiff and Dad also they chipped in too, but
Yeah,
um, the reason why I thought about it is because I kind of knew that you weren't going to get an inheritance of any kind really coming out of high school. Um, and so I wanted to for you to have a head start, which you did with your car, right? You bought a car with that money.
yeah,
Um, and that was the beginning, I feel like, for the other kids, for the parents to see this is what we need to do for our kids moving forward, even though you weren't my kid. And so I thought it was funny because I pulled out the Dodge. Remember, I pulled the
yeah. I
Dodge
was
Charger
like,
key. So everybody was
what? He
looking
got
like,
me a new
oh,
car.
yeah. Everybody thought I got you like some 2015 Dodge Charger. I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
but don't got like that.
He's like, oh, I just threw it in there. But that the gift was just, I mean, like that meant a lot to me. I felt like, regardless, or all the things that we had gone through as children, as like kids, and like growing up, and even like things of like me, like 2, 3 years prior, I felt like it's like when you know that your family tries, like it's not like they don't try. At least I knew growing up my family tried. And I think everyone, I don't know, just in that moment I was like, I just love you guys, and I know that our childhood wasn't perfect at all, but I know that like when mom said she chipped in too and like had to add money,
Yep,
I
yep.
know that they want,
I remember.
like, you guys wanted the best for me. And I felt like, I can't be the victim of my childhood
No,
or
no,
of all
not at
those
all.
things. I
And that's
think
kind
you
of the point
guys
of this.
set me up nicely from doing that.
No, yeah, for sure. Because this episode, like, I I want people to understand, like, okay, you may have gone through X, Y, and Z, but you can't let that shape um the reality of your future or even your present, right? You could change as an adult. How long are you going to talk about, well, I grew up poor and I'm from, you know, the inner city and the world is against me. I That concept, and I understand there are different people that go through different obstacles, but I think at a certain point it's like, okay, it's time to change that, right? There's so many different ways now to succeed. Like there's so much information in people's hand at people's fingertips now that it's almost inexcusable. Almost, I'm not gonna say because this for certain people it's just, hey, it won't cut out for you, I guess. But everybody, most, I mean, pretty anybody that's got a smartphone almost, it's like you could sell T-shirts, like make a design or something to get yourself out of something, but you have to be willing to make certain sacrifices, right? And that's what certain people are not willing to do. One thing of Dad coming up, he stayed true to his faith, and I think that also kind of dictated me and you and Ashley's mindset as far as I guess you could say like God's life or role in our life, and then
Definitely.
into adulthood, his role. Um,
100%.
I think with him, he made it clear like, hey, no matter what, God has got us, right? And this
Hmm.
him because these are all challenges. Um,
Yeah. And
and
I
I
don't know
know,
how you interpret, I don't know how you interpreted that growing up, because you were older when Burgess and um, Massachusetts Street and even Wesley Hospitality, when all of that was happening. So I don't know if you were like, man, come on, shut up with that, or if you and like, or you were wrestling with that idea. But it's funny because for me, I like wholeheartedly accepted it, and I think that was just because also I was young. Like those things to me, I didn't have resentment of like being cold in the house or super hot or um, like just like all these things, or not having my own room or not having a door, or like those type of things. I think it hadn't sat with me. It felt normal, like in one sense. I knew it wasn't normal, but it felt like, oh, we'll get over this. Like dad is rebuilding the house. Like,
Yeah,
so I think it was always like, so when dad would say those things, which I think was also, if like you add art into our family, I think our faith was also the two things that I think made our house warmer and more fun. And I don't know, like I look back on fond memories of dad talking about God, or us praying at the table, or him telling us things like in the midst of, our hard times. I like held on to those words and believed them.
yeah. It definitely was the foundation of the household that kind of kept us together. And even today, I say we still support each other. I mean, we're all 20 minutes away from each other, except for you. You're like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But I think it did really. It kind of made things feel better, peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
This being over us is gonna protect me while I sleep and
Mhm.
make me feel warm while I am asleep. Um,
Yeah.
I would say I never got to a point where I was just like, God, you must not really care about us, because if you did, why would we be in this situation?
Mhm.
I think the more practical side, which I got from mom, is kind of like, God will send you, He will send you, let's say, some mercy here. He'll give you a hint there, and if you picking up neither one, like, hey, look, I'm trying to teach you, son, but you ain't really, so you don't have to go through this on your own. I ain't gonna make sure something crazy happens to you where you can't handle it, but you're gonna have to go through this journey the hard way. And so that's kind of how I took it. And so when I got out of the house, I kind of took it as my gift from God is my ability to get myself out of a bad situation. Right? I got two hands, I got 2 feet, a working brain. That's all I need. Um, and I got kind of like a little over the top with it, which would make any relationship that I would build maybe a little bit unrelatable, right?
Yeah.
Because some people, they're like, "Yo, relax, like the world's not ending tomorrow. Like you don't have to go so high speed." And I'm like, "Nah, nah, nah. Time is of the essence. You don't understand? I'm 19, you know,
Yeah.
slow down. You're like, yeah, like you got 3 kids and a wife waiting at home." And I do appreciate that foundation that Dad really emphasized on with our family, because I think moving forward, it allowed us to now have our own interpretation and our own relationship with God, and maybe also help us process um, a little bit of everything that we went through, right? And I appreciate the transparency from as
Yeah.
adults,
They
so
were
that
very upfront and real that
yeah,
they were not perfect.
yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
the one thing I appreciate. They were very humble about the whole thing. Like dad was very quick to like just acknowledge, like he would always say, I am not perfect. He would come and talk to us after giving us a beating and like, just like be gushy and mushy, and like he would just, both of them, they were very like real. And I think even during the divorce, like I had real conversations with dad. Like I had real questions to ask him, and he was very transparent. And I still, but also, of course, I was a child, so you don't share everything. But also with mom, like mom became my best friend, like during those times. And I mean, we were like joined to the hip. Like that was my buddy. Like we went through everything together after the divorce. So,
and I would
I,
say,
yeah, what were you
go
gonna say?
ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say like, and I think uh, that's how I know mom so well now. And then it also, I picked up on a lot of pointers or a lot of like cues and social cues and how she was when I started to see her and Theo's marriage like just totally like fall to the wayside, because I knew my mom and I knew she was not being herself. And I had bad. I told my mom the first time I met. It's funny. Did you hear this? The first time I met Theo, I was like, "He's aggressive, and I don't like him."
No, I just remember like when he like the fact that he just came into Tonto, like he owned the place. and
Yeah.
dad's name was still on the mortgage, and dad came in and just used the bathroom real quick, and he was just like, "Yo, what you doing? Uh, I own the place, you know." But I thought that was pretty interesting, and that kind of told me what type of man Tio was
Yeah.
moving forward. And so, and like that's the reason why I want to talk about this topic in this episode because you talked about your passions and what you're working on now, right? Me being in
Hmm.
the Navy, doing real estate, working on generational wealth and passive income. You can't really excel in your passions, your goals, if you have not healed in a healthy way from your past, right? And
Hmm.
you could be 50 and still deal with some of the things, right? Grandpa, right? Carl Milton, um,
Yeah.
still had some things of a stronghold on dad, all
Yeah.
until he died, right? And
Yeah.
you
Being
can't,
talked to like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's why I want to really talk about this because you don't want that holding you back. And in some people, they may be productive, but it's not in a healthy way because you'll never be satisfied, right? Because like I said, you're chasing that ghost, right? Um, you don't want to be unpleasant with everybody else around you. Here you are, you have the and you have the family you always wanted, and then you're still unhappy because of this kind of this ghost, this thing on your shoulder, on your back that you're trying to make up for, or get over. It's like this unsettling feeling, and so I really just want to kind of go over that because I feel like throughout this podcast with talking about being productive, growing as a individual, being able to make passive income and just be the best version of yourself. How can you be that best version if you have not got over the old version?
Yeah. I agree. I think I'm still processing a lot of things about my childhood. I think I kind of laugh at it because it's like when you said, "Oh, like Massachusetts Street and um, like Wesley Hospitality and stuff like that." I think my life feels so full, like of things because it's like after that, I still went through like few more years of like difficult things to kind of process as a kid, and I think I was like, what? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That was the first half of my life. And it feels like kind of funny and weird, but I feel like God has kept me in basically in that in positivity. He's kept me with dad always telling us like don't pursue your passion, don't give up on your dream. And yeah, I felt like I held on to those things for real. The things that dad would say and mom would say. Because mom
Talk a
is a
little
go
bit
getter as
about
well.
she knows she is like a miracle worker.
She literally.
I just talked about that to her when we went out lunch or breakfast, and I just was like wondering, like, Mom, I don't understand how like we'd be hurting, and then the next day you're like, I got the $500, and even Dad be like, what?
Literally.
Like, what the heck? And
Mom, oh my gosh, I can't. If I had half of I don't know, the perseverance she had in life, I think I would be doing just fine right now.
oh yeah, so talk a little bit about we talked about this a little bit where how mom is the go-getter, dad is the dreamer, and you said that the difference between there being rules in the household and structure, and how that made it a hard time for you to be like a self-starter.
Yeah. I think I've like realized this recently, being amongst like other families and other people and different types of children, and also just talking to other adults about them and their childhood. I was like, huh, that's different. And we were like we had a lot of free range in our family in terms of time. Like we didn't have a lot of routines. We could get up whenever we wanted. There was no like, we could go to bed just about whenever we wanted, as long as we were in our rooms, basically. Like we couldn't be out and about. Um, and I did have routines before, like mom and dad. Dad used to tuck me in every night. But then, as I got older, there was really no bedtime or weekend things. Like you guys did chores and I would not do anything. I
Yeah.
would go eat breakfast that dad made, which seemed like a routine, like Saturday morning breakfast. And then they would clean and I would just like go in my room and play Sims and scratch my belly or something. And um, so, yeah, I think uh, it was good for me in one way because I am a very creative person. So I don't easily get bored and I don't easily like despair about being alone. So so it was like kind of cool and freeing to me. I just watched TV or I played video games or I caught up on Naruto or I don't know if I had video games like my own console. Well, I had the GameCube, and I would do my own thing. I would draw. I would write periodically, and yeah. But what made it difficult was that this was like years of not a lot of routine. So I think I as a result of that, it was a very chill atmosphere. But I think I also have trouble with starting tasks. Like it's such a comfort spot to me, and it's so normal for me to just like sit on the couch and like watch TV or like play or be on my phone or do whatever until who knows when, just lose track of time. But which really affected me in college. That lack of routine and discipline in that was an adjustment, and it still has been, but it was a hard adjustment for me. It affected my grades because it's just like you're just like, oh, I'll do it later, that whole procrastination mindset. So
I
that is
think,
what was hard for me. Yeah.
and I think so the funny thing about that is that I had a different upbringing, even though we were in the same house. Like mine was boot camp style.
Yeah.
So like, I remember falling down the stairs, like the whole flight of
I
stairs.
remember that.
And the first thing Dad asked is, "Did I touch his walls?"
Yes. Oh, my
Because
wall's okay. I remember
yeah,
that.
I would clean the walls, sweep, swab, or mop, clean the bathrooms, walk the dogs, you name it.
I never
Big
took a
brother's
freaking
joy.
dog out of the day of my life.
And we had like three of them, and they never lasted. Grandma
Never.
jokes us.
Yeah, we're going to hell because the way we treated our animals.
Yeah, they all died. Fishes, gerbils, you name it. Would not last in our house. Maybe that was because of me. Who knows? Right?
That's because no one actually wanted to do the work.
So definitely structure for me. Big brother doing it a lot of things, and I remember like when it was it was getting closer to me going to boot camp. I was like, I don't know what y'all about to do, but a lot of this stuff ain't gonna get done unless y'all doing it when I leave. And Dad, I do appreciate Dad being hard on me, but I always knew that there was love. So in
Yeah,
the
he
midst
made it
of
very
some
clear that there
hardships,
was love.
yeah, in the midst of hardships, in the midst of any other wacky thing that could possibly happen, life, right? I knew
Mm-hmm.
that our parents loved us. I knew that even after being disciplined and yelled at, um, you know, I knew he loved me. And he just wanted me to be, the best, right? Have the best character, the best integrity, the best work ethic, um, and to be as righteous as possible. So
Yeah.
those things are invaluable. Um, and yeah, we may have some issues that we had growing up, but we do still value the things that our parents were able to provide for us, which were the intangibles, to be honest. And I think the older we get, the more
Yeah.
we value those things because some of my coworkers throughout the years, they don't really mess with their parents. And they didn't haven't even gone through the things we have gone through. I'm like, hey, when's the last time you seen your family? Oh, like 7 years. Like, what? Yeah, you only
Yeah.
like so like
That blows my mind. They're just like, yeah, I don't, I haven't talked to my mom in like, you know, 4 years. I'm just like, what? But family really isn't that high of, a value or a virtue or value to them. It's like, whatever. Like people don't care about their families.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it's funny, but it's also not funny because
yeah,
usually there's some sort of pain there that plays into that. It's not for
yeah,
no reason that they don't talk to their family as much.
yeah. Just from what I understand about them, what they've talked about. Um, but even still, I mean, unless it was unless it was like some Anton Fisher stuff, like some crazy, molestation,
Yeah.
something crazy. I couldn't imagine not talking to our family for years. Um,
Yeah.
and so just to wrap things up, because we did talk about how our parents and our life, our growing up kind of inspired us. Uh, what are some mantras you live by today?
Yeah. So one that dad maybe would have said or mom would have said, but maybe not in this wording, is that God is always with me. I used to tell myself that, and I think I used to think that a lot. I don't think I would like tell myself that, but it was a belief that I had in my head as we went through everything. I think I felt, for some reason, I felt protected by God, like everything, out of everything. And two is I've always thought that creativity was a gateway to my economic freedom. And I've only ever seen it that way. I've seen it as a love, and I've seen it as something that brings me so much joy. But I've also seen it as, and some parents would never teach this to their kids, that it's actually a career. Like you can make a living out of it. And I think from dad saying and mom saying, they would both say, like, do what you have to do. And then, or mom would say, you know, but you need to do the work to do it. And dad would say, pursue your passion. And they were both for me. They were never like, do you ever want to try and think about something more realistic? Like, that was never like, I felt like a thing that mom and dad said to me. So I've always seen it as that. So I've always tried to like also attain that as a career. And then three, um, I've always thought also, um, if you don't give anything or you give something minimally, don't expect anything back. Like if you give nothing or minimally into a relationship, don't expect that relationship to succeed. If you don't work hard, don't expect, you know, um, yourself to wind up with, $10 million or a crazy business. If you don't work at art, I would always tell myself, then you will not be a good artist. Like you're not just going to magically get better at being an artist. Um, and then the fourth thing, which I've realized very early on as we moved to Elizabeth City, that people don't always understand me, and that's okay. And I think I shoved and pretended to be one person at school and then was another person actually, like in my heart and at home. But out of my whole life, like I felt like people didn't understand me. And they always have something to say, you're weird or you're this or when you going to do this or, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I think it's just, I think this is a benefit to my creativity. And I think it's my unique self that I actually really enjoy because I also have fun with myself. So,
pause.
it's just, yeah, pause. But yeah, like, so I've really taken that one to heart as well. I'm glad that my family accepts me because I know some families wouldn't accept people like me.
And that's understandable. But that's not for them. That's for you. You do your own validation. So
Yeah.
I would say for me, it was so from Gladiators, his dad played that movie so much. I
Yes.
what resonated with me was when he would say, "What we do in life echoes in eternity," and so
Mm-hmm.
I even got a tattoo of that in my right arm because he's right. Remember when I said, chasing that ghost? So think about what great grandpa did as far as having kids all over the country, how that affected Carl Milton, and then how Carl Milton affected dad, and then how his dad upbringing affected him into how he raised us, and then how I'm raising our, my son Junior, right? And so I think about, okay, so how the values I want to give Anthony, some of the ideas, the strongholds, so maybe even some a generational curse I may be, subconsciously passing down to him. All that will transfer down from generation to generation. So that's how I look at what we do in life echoes in eternity. Um, I would say another thing is hard work always pays off eventually. So I think one
Mm-hmm.
thing, and this is where if you want to get spiritual, you can say, God has a plan on when he wants to give you that thing, or you could say, hey, this is how life works. You could bust your behind, um, but it'll come eventually. Don't it may come when you think you're ready to get it, right? And you may even see yourself outperforming other people. You may see yourself just killing the game, but you're like, yo, where's my just due? So I would say that it'll come. You just got to keep pushing, and you'll probably get blessed along the way, right? Favor does happen. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
don't ever keep up with the Joneses. So I'm the type of person, and I definitely probably got this from dad. I'll wear the same pair of jeans for like 10 years.
Oh
Um,
yeah, you definitely got that from dad. I'm
um,
more like mom.
I don't really care about the newest car. My car's like 7 years old. It's paid off. I don't, my sailors, um, that I get paid 3 times more than drive better cars than me. But
Mm-hmm.
that stuff's not really important to me. And I noticed that it really doesn't matter from growing up, right? You trying to keep up with that,
Yeah.
you end up getting synced or something
Yeah.
because you can't afford that. You know what I'm saying? Even with credit, because credit they'll let you get anything once you got decent credit. Um,
Yeah.
and
That was a big thing.
it was
That
huge,
uh, yeah, big takeaway from us growing up, that like not to live above our means.
very huge, and then that will forever be I think ingrained in us. And then my last one is you don't deserve anything that you didn't earn. So I'll be 30 this year, so I could say, you know, I'm 30. I deserve this nice house on the beach water because that's what I see other 30-year-olds doing on social media to be at with my Mercedes G Wagon, right? But
Yeah.
if I haven't done the things I need to do to get there and live comfortably, then no, I don't deserve that Mercedes G Wagon. And so my version of deserve is kind of different because, like, in case of that Mercedes G Wagon, I can't wait to get one day. That thing's $137,000. So
Yeah, that's
yeah, that's a
crazy.
house. Actually, that's
Yeah.
actually the value of the duplex I got. That's crazy. So
Yeah.
you got to think about it. Like for me, if I would say that I wouldn't want a vehicle that isn't because a car is an expense, it's not an asset, right? I don't want anything that is worth that is an expense to be worth more than 10% I'm worth. So that let's just say if that car gets driven off a hill, I can drive it. Somebody does it or I do it, falling asleep. Hope I'm still alive after the fact. I could just go and buy another one the next day. So keep that in point. You don't if you haven't done the work to get there, you don't really deserve it. Your age does not matter in comparison to what you have produced throughout your lifetime. And so that's my last takeaway from kind of our childhood. Um, and that's it really. Uh, Kind of closing out on everything. I think we came out all right, right? We could have. I think we definitely could have been, if you want to say a statistic or, um, you know, be a pity party and blame our childhood for the reason why we ended up being unsuccessful. But I think we're turning around. I think we turn things around for the next generation. Um, and I'm proud.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Definitely. I think I'm thankful that God has given us the wisdom and the foresight and the ability to learn from our mistakes or learn from our childhood and stuff that, like we can do it differently.
Yeah, we can. And so thanks, Aaliyah, for being on my first ever episode. Shoot, we talked for about an hour, but it was a good talk. Fleshed out
Mm-hmm.
some things, and I do hope that this kind of helps some people kind of think about their childhood, not in a negative way where it brings back a lot of pain, but just kind of some gives a different perspective of how moving forward can I do things different so that I still don't have the ball and chain called on my childhood holding me back.
Hmm.
So thanks again, sis, and hopefully in the future we can do some more podcasts.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on, Aunt.
No problem. But I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Later.